The Act of Becoming 2016 Freshman Seminar Project. The number one question. The main question that will be addressed throughout this presentation is, how have communities and governments thought about and acted to become more than the sum of their individual experiences, especially in relation to social challenges? How will this question be addressed? The main question will be addressed through two prompts that target the sense of community that has both grown and diminished throughout the African American community. The prompts will also target specific events that have happened in recent years and how these events have changed and altered our sense of community and understanding. Prompts that will be targeted. 1. Community and culture are required to be transmitted in the coming and novel and improvisational ways. How are communal norms transmitted in contemporary culture, and how does the process differ? How and when does the transmission of culture become politicized? 2. What does it mean to be an American citizen? How can one's American citizenship be questioned and or affirmed legally and or otherwise? Prompt 1. Community and culture are required to be transmitted in the coming in novel and improvisational ways. How are communal norms transmitted in contemporary culture, and how does the process differ? How and when does the transmission of culture become politicized? What are communal norms? Communal norms are defined as a set of cultural ideas and practices that are shared amongst many people. Communal norms both advance our sense of community and culture as a whole, but also create setbacks that can and are held against us. How communal norms were transmitted before. Older generations will claim that traditions were passed down from grandparents and great-grandparents through family stories and hands-on activities. Because traditions were passed down through primary sources, it is assumed that these traditions are the purest. Additionally, there was a large amount of different traditions going around because of separation amongst geographical lines, causing limited mobility between blacks of the South and blacks of the North. How communal norms are transmitted now. Communal norms are now transmitted through social media because of its popular increase in the 21st century. Because of this, cultural differences amongst geographics has diminished and are now being intertwined to form a cultural set of norms amongst blacks that we highly accept and have created a greater sense of community throughout our culture. How does the transmission of culture become politicized? The transmission of culture becomes politicized through the liberation of African Americans. The liberation opened up our culture for all to see and allow others to exploit and criticize black culture. An example of this could be the critique and appropriation of black hairstyles. There is much speculation on the critique of extravagant black hairstyles. Through social media, this critique has multiplied to a constant battle between cultures. Other cultures, such as whites, mock the African American community for our unique hairstyles and associate them with being uncultured based upon their norms. An example of this can be shown on this slide with 3 pictures. When did the transmission of culture become politicized? The transmission of culture became politicized back in the 1980s with the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation. Now that blacks were liberated, their ideas and cultures could be spread through the migration of blacks, no longer being limited to or by geological lines and barriers. Additionally, this migration of culture allowed itself to be exploited and used against them, which restricted them from being able to voice any political views and subjected them to the same oppression, except now the oppression is mental and not physical. The introduction of blacks into politics began with the 15th Amendment, but was not practiced until the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The blacks wanted a voice, so they had to put their morals, values, and traditions in the forefront, which allowed all black cultures to merge into one general ideology, creating a community. Relation to the main question. The integration of different geological traditions allowed for a stronger sense of community to be created for the African American community. New social challenges that gave or bring the sense of oppression to blacks bring out community closer together. This harmony provides constant motivation for the continual liberation of our people. Additionally, community strays away from the idea of individuality in the sense that individuals are no longer have to believe that they are alone in the fight, and this therefore strengthens the mentality of all in the fight, making it an unstoppable force.
Prompt 3. What does it mean to be an American citizen? How can one's American citizenship be questioned and or affirmed legally and or otherwise? Citizenship and the law. Legally, a person is an American citizen if they are born in the United States or in a territory of the United States. If a child is born outside the U.S., but the parents are U.S. citizens, the child will be considered a U.S. citizen as long as the parent gets the child U.S. government documentation, such as a passport. If a person is not born in the United States, they can become a citizen by taking and passing the naturalization test, which has two sections, English and civics. Citizenship can be affirmed with a U.S. birth certificate, passport, certificate of citizenship, or naturalization certificate. Citizenship in a social context. Many legal American citizens are treated as second-class citizens and don't reap all of the benefits of being a citizen. Some of the basic rights that American citizens are supposed to be guaranteed are freedom of religion, freedom of press, and freedom of speech. Each of these rights are consistently violated for people of color in this country. Freedom of religion. Islamophobia runs rampant among Americans, but is particularly intense with white Americans. A survey done by YouGov in December 2015 found that 62% of white respondents have a somewhat very unfavorable opinion of Islam. Islamophobia is only being worsened with the 2016 presidential election because Donald Trump has been given a national platform to speak against Muslims, even going as far to say that he would like to ban Muslims from the country. Although he is clearly ignorant, Donald Trump's popularity across the country proves that he is not alone in his wishes to take away freedom of religion from certain people. Freedom of speech. After the murder of Michael Brown, Black people from across the country went to Ferguson, Missouri to assist with protests and raise awareness nationwide about police brutality. The U.S. Department of Justice conducted a 6-month investigation of the Ferguson Police Department behavior during these protests and found that they denied people their right to free speech multiple times. The Ferguson Police Department arrested people for contempt of cop cases, including talking back to officers, recording police conduct, and being involved in protests, although all these acts are protected by the Constitution. Freedom of press. In December 2014, journalists attempted to cover a story regarding a large protest that was going on for Michael Brown and Eric Garner, who both had died the previous summer. Although the protesters, primarily African American, were being peaceful, they were attacked and beaten by police. Many journalists at the protests were attacked and beaten as well, and their equipment was either broken or confiscated by police, preventing them from running their stories. Questioning of citizenship. Blocking the freedoms of press, speech, and religion are just a few of the ways that Americans can have their citizenship questioned and have their rights as citizens taken away. Relation to main question. Through social media, many oppressed social groups in America have been working together for the past few years to fight against police brutality via the Black Lives Matter movement. Underrepresented groups in this country have been working together to ensure that both the police and the American government are giving people the rights that they innately have as citizens. Conclusion. The new developments in the African American community have all led to a greater and stronger sense of community among us all. We have and still are continuously striving towards liberation and have found that working as one and not as individuals will aid us in getting to our promised land at a much quicker and steadier pace. Through many of the social and political struggles that we have faced, we learned from each experience and so have grown into the populace that we are today, defying statistics and fighting for what is rightfully ours.